Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about all of the things I got up to in May and the books that I read last month. So May was an improvement from April, but it wasn't like a peak reading month. And there was a bit of a mixed bag with quality. Things were up and down, but I did do some reading. In May I read 5 books to completion. I also DNF'd 2. One of them I didn't really get very far into, but 2, coming to a total of 2,267 pages for the books that I completed. 2 of the books were fantasy, 1 was a sci-fi, 1 was a romance, and 1 was a historical mystery. All 5 of the books that I completed were adult books. I had 1 5-star, 1 4.5 star, 2 4 stars, and 1 3 star. So still mostly positive, but yeah, mostly positive. I started 3 series, but I will only be continuing in 2, and those are 2 series which I am now up to date in. I did continue in 1 which puts, I believe, my on the go at 25, so still in those mid-20s, which is fine. And a lot of those I can't continue on with because I'm waiting for the next book to be released. In terms of things that I got up to in May, it wasn't like a super eventful month. It was my dad's birthday, went back to visit him. It was also my sister's birthday, so a month of birthdays. I did a couple of book events throughout the month. I also did my Ride London cycling event, which I had done not enough training for, but I feel like I did very well. I'm very happy with how I did. So that was a 100-kilometre bike ride around London and out into Essex, and I did it in the time that I wanted to. So I wanted to do it under 4 hours, and I did it in like 3 hours 45. So very happy with that. I was very sore, like for the next few days following that. I was like, my legs and back were like, oh, what have you done to me? But yes, very happy with having completed that and that like sporting achievement. That was May. That was May. So the books, through the month of May, I did do a little like challenge which I vlogged, called Read or Unhaul, where I went through the books that I had on a self-destructing list 12 months ago and read them. So I realised that it had been 12 months since I had filmed that video concept, which had 5 books in it, and the plan is that if you haven't read those books within the 12 months, then you're obviously not interested in them and you've had them for long enough anyway, so you should unhaul them. And I don't really like to unhaul things unless I've given them a try, and I had only given one of those 5 books a try, so I read the other 4, or gave the other 4 a try to see if I would unhaul them. And I can say I am only keeping one of the books from that project, so I guess it was productive in getting books off of my shelf. I would have preferred, I think, if I had some more faves in there and some books that actually were more hidden gems, but it has worked, and I have read through some of the books that were on some of my older books on my TBR, so I do have a vlog for that with all the books. I'll talk through them as well briefly here, but there is those like more detailed thoughts in that vlog. But we will start off with those books. Yeah, so spoilers for that vlog, but these were the 4 books included in it. So I had The Book of Night by Holly Black, The Three-Body Problem by Sixen Liu, And I Darken by Kirsten White, and Seven Devils by Elizabeth May and Laura Lamb. So of these, Book of Night, I actually really enjoyed. This was the first book that I read, and I really liked this one. This is the one that's staying, and it pleasantly surprised me because I had seen some mixed reviews for it. This is a sort of like urban fantasy, our world, but slightly not our world, because in this world your shadow can like detach from you and the shadow holds magic. We follow main character Charlie, who prior to the start of this book used to steal things from other people. She was a sort of con artist, thief, but she's given all that up. She's like, I've made enough money doing that, I don't need to do that anymore, and she's working in a bar and just living her life and trying to put her sister into school. But then things go a little bit awry at the beginning of the book when she witnesses a murder on her walk home, and she sort of gets thrown back into the society that she was in before, and is investigating what is going on. So I found this really engaging. I liked the magic. I would have liked more exposition and more world building to help sort of flesh it out a bit more, because it sort of just felt as though you had to accept that this was the world and this is how it existed. So that was my main like faults with it. But I enjoyed our characters. I enjoyed the pacing and the plot and where we got to, and how it all like weaved together. The setting itself isn't a personal favourite of mine. Like, I much prefer a epic fantasy world as opposed to our world with magic. So that's just a personal preference. The setting in and of itself is not my favourite. But I did really enjoy this, and I would continue on with the series as and when book 2, which I think is the finale, comes out. Then I have the 2 DNFs, so Seven Devils by Elizabeth May and Laura Lamb, and I Darken by Kirsten White. This was the one that I did not make much headway in. I'm gonna take these bookmarks out. I only got 20 pages into this one. It is a YA trilogy centered around Vlad the Impaler, and I had lost interest in this. The 20 pages that I read were fine, but then I just never had any desire to continue picking up this book. That it had been like weeks of me going, oh, maybe I should pick that one up, maybe I should pick it up. And I just never did. So then I was like, oh, well, you've had this book for years, you're continuing to put it off. Just, I think this is part of the project of the self-destruction books, is that you unhaul it now. One that I did give a bit more of a try to is Seven Devils by Elizabeth May and Laura Lamb. And this one I made 82 pages into. Save that bookmark. And this is like a YA sci-fi duology. It was just fine. Everything was going along fine. It was very fast-paced, plot-centric. And I was just like, this is fine. It's probably going to be like a 3-star. Do I need to keep going? And I was like, no, you don't really need to keep going. Read something that you're excited about. Read something that you want to read. So I put this one down as well. And then the final book for that vlog was The Three-Body Problem by Six and Lou. This one I did finish and I did read through. But I have some, I guess, more mixed thoughts on this one. My reading experience was very up and down. This is a like denser sci-fi book, and it's got 2 timelines. The first timeline being during the Cultural Revolution, so I think it's like 1960s in China, and we're following a character, UNG, who following some events gets drafted into this like military engineering centre because of her experience in physics. So we follow her there, her entering there and what she is getting up to there. And then we also are in the modern day following our character Wang Miao, and things for him are quite interesting. So he is a physicist, and at the beginning of the book he discovers that other scientists and professionals are committing suicide, and it looks as though there is a pattern to it, and he's been tasked by the police force and the government to investigate what is going on here. And there's like a countdown going on in his head, and he gets exposed to this virtual reality game called The Three-Body Problem, and so we see him experiencing that, and it all sort of twists together. And there were moments in this where I was really invested, I was really into it. I was like, yes, 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 yes. I think particularly around the beginning bit where we're following Wang Miao, he gets this, at the beginning of the book, these numbers going across his vision, and they're counting down, and it's quite like, oh, what are they counting down to? What's going on? This is really intriguing. Like, where is this coming from? Why is this only affecting him and not his family? Like, what is this? And then there were moments where I was like, I just feel as though it's petering out, that it's just dragging, and it could have been tightened up a little bit. Maybe that's my lack of like science knowledge, that I am definitely not a scientist. Science was a subject that I did well in school. I was actually really good at science, but I never enjoyed it. So I haven't pursued it in my adult life. That I finished school and was like, right, that's me in science, done. I think probably quite a lot of physics stuff went over my head. There were some moments where I was so engaged. I was like, yes, yes. And then I'd have 50 pages where I was like, is this book ever going to end? Why has it lost my interest? And it's hard to exactly pinpoint which scenes didn't work for me, because there were elements in each of the like sections of the book which really interested me. There are elements of the game that really like intrigued me. There are elements of Wang Ji and her life that really intrigued me, and the same with Wang Miao. And so I was like, what are the bits that aren't working for me? So I think I'm happy to just leave this as is and just let it remain like this. I might give the TV show a try just to see how that compares to this. I'm happy I read this. I'm happy I gave it a try, but I will pass this book back to the charity shop. So that was that project and the books that I read for that. I then did mix in books that really excited me, some new releases, some books that were just calling to me. So it was a real mixture that last month of reading backlist books that had been on my TBR for a very long time, reading them, combined with new releases. And I was just like jumping back and forth between like really old book to really new book, really old book to really new book. And I think that worked quite well, that I was like keeping up momentum with the old and the new.
I think actually before I even started that project, I read Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is one of my anticipated releases for 2024 and Emily Henry's newest romance release. So I've read everything that Emily Henry has released and I have enjoyed all of them. I've enjoyed all of them immensely. This stuck the landing for me. I really enjoyed it and I got the pretty edition because I saw it and I was like, oh, you can come home with me, I like you. So in this we're following two main characters, Daphne and Miles, and at the beginning of the book Daphne's fiance has called it off with her because he's realised that he's in love with his childhood friend, and Daphne's like, oh, I've moved to this small town to be with you and now you've just ditched me. I've got my dream job, I've got the perfect job, but I can't afford to live here. What do I do? And her fiance's childhood friend has also gone and broken up with her ex, and our two main characters are these exes that are now moving in together, and through a series of events at the beginning of the book they start pretending that they are actually in a relationship to get back at their exes. But how long will they be pretending and when's it actually going to become real? So I really enjoyed our characters together. I like seeing them sort of like healing and growing together as their like friendship blossoms into more than a friendship, and seeing how that all unfolds. I like the setting. I think Emily Henry has done a few of these sort of northern US state in the summer with like a lake setting. I think she writes them really well. It makes me want to go to those like locations. It just always seems quite like cozy and but like with a lake. I like a lake. I really enjoy this. Her writing is just so like engaging. I fly through it. I'm like, yes, 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 yes. So this was just really fun. This was really fun and like engaging to read, and I would recommend it, especially if you like Emily Henry. This one definitely worked for me. Then another new release that I also read just because it called to me. It was like, I don't know, it was calling me off my bookshelf. It was like, read me, read me, read me. And I was like, okay, fine then, I'll read you. And that was A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. This is the first book in a fantasy romance duology, which has a Viking-inspired setting. And in this world, some people are blessed by the gods, and so they have the magic and power of the gods. And our main character, Freya, has been blessed by a god, but she has kept this secret her whole life because it's been prophesied that whoever controls her will become king. So to avoid being controlled by other people, she has kept this to herself and has kept this secret. Until at the beginning of the book, this secret is revealed. So her secret is that she can shield herself and protect herself, and she ends up in a duel to the death, and to avoid dying, she puts up her shield to protect herself, and that's when it gets revealed who she is. And so one of the chieftains is like, okay, great, I'm going to marry you now. You're going to be my second wife and you're going to make me a king. Things progress from there, but her romance is actually with the son of this chieftain. I enjoyed the world building. Like I liked the world, the Viking setting, the magic. I found that all really interesting. I enjoyed our characters for the most part. Like they were enjoyable to read from. I liked the tension that was built up between them. The twists and turns were done well. I did predict some of them, but that's fine, like absolutely fine. But I enjoyed the way that they were revealed. Sometimes our main character Freya annoyed me. I was just like, use your head, girl. Like, you are making some dumb decisions here. Use your head. Don't just act, think. So there were some moments where I was like, where I wanted to jump into the book and like shake her and be like, just stop. Overall, I enjoyed it. I think I would have liked a little bit more like tension in the romance. I think it was done well, but I would have liked a bit more like, will they, won't they, will they, won't they? Just dragged it on a bit more. Like, I enjoy when characters just don't get together. That build up is my favourite bit. And so actually when they do get together, I'm like, oh, they're already there. So I feel as though I maybe would have liked that build up to have continued into the second book, but I think where we've ended is a good point. So yeah, I definitely be continuing on with the series and reading the sequel when it comes out. But it wasn't quite, yeah, I'd say this was like a 4 stars. It was like solid, it was good, it was like, I think well written, well paced, but not a new favourite. And then the final book that I have to talk about is A Dangerous Collaboration by Deanna Reborn. I was about to say by Veronica Speedwell. No, this is the 4th book in the Veronica Speedwell series. So I've been reading through this series slowly, gradually throughout this year, and I've been really enjoying it. I really enjoy this series. It is so fun. And I think this might be my favourite book in the series. This series, we're following Deanna Reborn, and it's set in like the Victorian era, and her and her friend Stoker end up getting mixed up in lots of different cases and mysteries throughout the books. The first one is following the murder of someone, and they're sort of like thrust into it and sort of seen as suspects in some ways, and they're like, no, 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 no. Veronica is quite independent. She is a lepidoporist, a butterfly researcher, and Stoker as well is, they're very like science focused and quite out there for their time, and each book is sort of quite like stands alone in terms of the mystery. And the mystery in this one is that we're on like a Cornish island investigating a disappearance or murder that had happened there and trying to figure out who did it. And it's got that sort of like folklore-y type vibe with it being on this island, and there's like a poison garden, and is it real, is it not real? I think that's what all of them do. There's a lot of like, is it real, is it not real in this series? But it is, things are real. It doesn't go into like fantastical. There's just always that question of like, could it be fantastical? But it's not. But there is throughout the series, although the mysteries are like wrapped up in each book, and plot line that goes through them all, and the relationship that's building between Veronica and Stoker, and I really enjoyed that aspect in this book. I think that was done really well. I was like, oh, the tension, oh. I really enjoyed that aspect, and I am looking forward to continuing on with this series. It's been a really enjoyable one for this year. So those are all of the books that I finished in the month of May. I think I also started The Familiar by Levi Dugo in May, but I didn't finish that until June, so it'll be in my June wrap up. But overall, some ups and downs, some peaks and troughs, but overall quite an enjoyable reading month. I felt quite productive getting some of these really old books off of my TBR, so quite a good mixture in there. Let me know if you have read any of these books and your thoughts on them, and what you got up to in the month of May, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my future videos. Bye!